Hey guys, my name is Ferguson. My family is like one of the greatest families I could ever be born into. Super Christian, like faith was always first. But I never really took advantage of that per se. Like we were always in church. Like anytime the doors were open, we were there. And for the longest time, I just piggybacked on my parents' faith. And my first like real experience with God, like on a spiritual level, was in 2011, January 11th, 2011. It was a youth service, basically children's church, but kind of more of a youth group kind of setting. And they asked if anyone wanted to get saved. And it was kind of like I was one of the first few to go. Then everyone that was in attendance went. And that was one of my first experiences with God. But like beforehand, like I countless numbers of times that He protected me. And yeah, so while I was technically saved, like young Brett didn't comprehend that. He didn't understand, the difference between sin and good, right and wrong, on a spiritual level. And later in life, I started doing some bad things. I started lusting after all these different things. I would be swallowed up by anxiety and feelings of isolation and sadness. And like I would lash out. I would be so angry. I wouldn't be talking right. I wouldn't be thinking right. And for the longest time, that's the way I lived. I had the audacity to call myself a Christian, yet I was doing all these things, away from church. I used to live a split life. There'd be the Brett that I presented to my parents at church, at Sunday school, and then there's the other one that everyone else saw. And for the longest time, that's how I lived until 2014, July 25th. It was Jonathan King was preaching, and he was talking about being a child of God. And I don't know what part of that message hit me, but I knew, hey, I needed to get right. And so on that service, I got rededicated. And while I want to say that it was all, sunshine and roses, it wasn't. I was still tempted with the things in my past, and I fell a few times. But you see, what I like to think of my testimony as being a victim of God's love. See, like God's love, it's the biggest bear hug you'll ever have. You see, God's love, it could do so many great things. For me, it uplifted me. See, after I got rededicated and started to grow in my faith, I started walking taller, I started to breathe heavier, and I started to relax. Those feelings of isolation, they were gone, because I'm not alone in this world, and you aren't either. You see, God's love has ruled my life so much, and for the longest time, I didn't even know. Like, I couldn't even comprehend how much He does. And God delivered me a lot of my past. I mentioned beforehand, I used to struggle with anxiety so much, to the point where I wouldn't even do anything with my friends because I'd be too scared of what would happen. I might say something wrong. I might make a joke that's unfunny. I might just I used to think I was a nuisance to those around me. And those feelings of anxiety, that loneliness, it was gone. God took it from me. God took it and made me better. He instilled in me a new heart. See, beforehand, I would lash out at people. I would be mad at the world. In my youth, I hate to say it, I'm not trying to glorify sin at all, but I was bullied. I was picked on, and I'd have these feelings of hate for those that picked on me, that would call me names, that would make jokes about me. I would be filled up with anger. God took that from me. He took that spirit of anger and hatred and contentment against all those that had done wrong, and He took that from me. He took all these things that I once thought I had to carry by myself, and He took me, He started carrying them for me. And if that's not amazing, I don't know what is. Later on, more recently, I was called to work at Mount Hope, and I have grown so much in my faith, and it just showed me how strong God's love is and how much it can do, not only in one person's self, but to an entire congregation and to an entire conglomeration of kids. And while my job as a cabin leader is to mentor, you know, I've had spiritual uplifting as well from the messages and the devos. See, that's the power of God's love. You know, God's love is amazing. It's the ruler of my life. God's love is what's made me into the person that I am today. And I thank God for that. I thank God for the bad times that I went through. Because beforehand, I thought I couldn't do it. Before I found God, I thought it was just me, that I had to get through it, or I wasn't going to get through it at all. I was at the base of that mountain looking up. But I found God, and I found that I'm not alone. That mountain is as easy as stepping on an escalator with God. I found that all these things that I was carrying, that terrible load, that feeling of just shame, could be taken as long as I gave it to God. I'm so thankful